On the Hawkeye Sports Network from Learfield, this is the Fight for Iowa podcast, brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy, proud partner of the Iowa Hawkeyes and the Big Ten Conference. Also by Iowa's Corn Farmers of the Iowa Corn Growers Association and Iowa Corn Promotion Board. You may think Iowa grows corn, but the truth is, corn grows Iowa. Also brought to you by Shields. We're right there with you in Des Moines, Sioux City, Iowa City, and Cedar Falls. This is the Fight for Iowa podcast. Here's the voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin.
Barely 3 months removed from a Big Ten tournament title run in Indianapolis, the excitement around Iowa men's basketball hasn't subsided. All-American forward Keegan Murray's 4th overall selection by Sacramento in the NBA draft, verbal commitments highlighting recent recruiting efforts, a significant changing of the guard with the coaching staff, and 3 returning starters from that 26-win team a year ago. Yes, there's plenty to revisit and look forward to with head coach Fran McCaffery on this week's Fight for Iowa podcast, sponsored by Shields, Athletico, and Iowa Corn. We'll get started in just a minute.
More of the Fight for Iowa podcast after this.
Oh, you know that old injury of yours? The one in your knee or maybe back? Instead of going to the doctor and then doing physical therapy, why not start with therapy first? Athletico Physical Therapy is changing the whole healing process around. Their physical therapists will find the source of your pain and help fix it. Start with them and start living pain-free. Just like that.
It all starts with Athletico Physical Therapy. Schedule your free assessment at athletico.com. No prescription needed. Proud partner of the Iowa Hawkeyes.
This is the Fight for Iowa podcast. Here's the voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin.
Former Hawkeye Keegan Murray is off to the NBA with his unresistant yet cold-blooded approach to basketball. The 6'8", 225-pound star forward averaged 24 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 block shots as a 3-level player during Iowa's run to the Big Ten tournament title that saw him set the 4-day marathon scoring record with 103 points, including 38 field goals. The Sacramento Kings used the 4th overall pick on Murray at the recent NBA draft. Coach Fran McCaffery sees Murray as a perfect fit for the Kings' intentions.
You know, you look at the roster and what they have, positionally, they're set pretty much at 4 spots. So for Keegan, this is a great opportunity for him to potentially come in and start as a rookie, which is, as you know, very difficult to do. I think he has the mindset and the skill set to do it. He has the opportunity to do it. And I really like that team's chances with him and that other starting position with Harrison Barnes and Sabonis and Davion Mitchell and Aaron Fox.
Highest draft pick in the history of Iowa basketball. You know, the Hawkeyes have put Luka Garza and Joe Wieskamp in the league the past couple of years, with hopefully more to come. What's that say about your program, the fast-forward yet under-control style of play that Iowa embraces? It's enduring to the pro game.
It is. And you know, I think a lot of it comes down to, like you said, pace of play, the ability to play fast but under control. And then if we have to, you know, with, of course, other teams slow you down, you have to be able to play a half-court game. Garza was phenomenal in that regard. So was Joe, and so was Keegan. You know, among others, you know, Bohannon was spectacular. I mean, we've got some great ones. It's great that we put 3 into the league. You know, so I think in some ways when you're running 5-out motion, that's kind of the definition of positionless basketball. And even though Garza was, you know, a traditional 5, he ran the floor and scored in transition. We picked and popped with him. We picked and rolled with him. We ISO'd him. You know, we threw it to him on the wing and let him, you know, back his guy down. And he really developed as a passer. You know, so you got to see his complete skill set. You know, look at Keegan. He was so good as a freshman. And it was like, wow, you know, his sophomore year was so different. It really wasn't that much different other than his role expanded. So, you know, he's playing 30, 32 minutes a game, you know, shoots it when he wants, you know, we're going to him, but it sort of happens organically in the motion game. We will run some sets for him coming out of timeouts. We'll run some sets for him at times. We'll call sets for him. But for the most part, he was able to score and affect the game all over the floor. And he was comfortable doing so. And in the NBA game, that's going to be critical because there's so much more space because of how they play defense in the NBA. There's no pack line defense in the NBA. That's against the rules. So when you take somebody who's as talented offensively as Keegan, you give him more space. It's scary to think about how great he's going to be.
Coach, add in Jaden Ivey, Johnny Davis, Malachi Branham, Liddell, and others. I think it's quite a statement for the Big Ten, which makes Iowa's run to the title in Indianapolis last March that much more special.
And, it's interesting too, Dolph, you make a great point, but the other guys who signed immediately when the draft was completed, I think what happens a lot of times when you see that the latter part of the second round, and you see a lot of draft and stash foreign players, the reason for that is agents have already worked out a two-way deal for their players. You look at a guy like Ron Harper, for example, and even AJ Green locally. The draft wasn't over 30 seconds, and they've signed a two-way deal. So that deal was already done. Like, don't take me 57. I already have a two-way with the team I want to play for. And it was a number of guys like Travion, Ron Harper, guys like that, who will also be in the league. So you think about, putting double-figure guys into the league in 1 year is pretty impressive.
Yeah, Diabate, Kofi, it goes on and on and on. An incredible year, which really puts the spotlight on the Hawks for positivity. Coach, you had some recent changes to your staff. Billy Taylor left, of course, to take over as a head coach at Elon College, and longtime assistant Kirk Spiro retired. Courtney Eldridge, who's been on your staff, will step into Billy's vacancy. And you hired former star, four-year starter for you, Matt Gatens, to replace Spiro. Two young, talented hires, Coach. Give us some strengths of each.
Well, I'm really appreciative of the job that Kirk Spiro did for us for 12 years, being a former Hawk. I mean, just, as professional as they come in every aspect and really talented. Billy Taylor, of course, he's worked for us before. So, I hired him 3 times. So very close with him. Again, another guy like Kirk had head coaching experience. So had been in my chair and kind of knew what that was like. And just both of those guys were really good in all facets of this profession. And I think that's what a lot of people misconstrue, and I think they have more of a football mentality. He coaches the offensive line, or he coaches the linebackers. And a lot of those guys will move around. But in basketball, you've got to be able to break a team down. You've got to be able to run a skill development workout. You've got to be able to recruit. You've got to be able to relate to the players. You've got to be able to get out and speak to alumni groups. I'm asking you to do everything. And so, we don't have, okay, he's a defensive guy. He's an offensive guy. He's a recruiter guy. He is a technical guy. He's your X and O guy. And that's not how it works in basketball. And the important thing for that to know is, if you only do one thing, how are you ever going to be a head coach? So you're not marketable to the head coaching market. You've got to be able to do it all. Kirk Spiro did it all. Billy Taylor did it all. And that's what Courtney Eldridge and Matt Gatens will do. And they hit the ground running on the recruiting trail. Of course, Matt was already involved with some players, and now he's involved with some different guys, but he's been out beating the bushes along with Courtney. Courtney had gotten more involved in the recruiting process during the pandemic because, the guys were allowed to get involved and make phone calls and stuff during that period of time because nobody was allowed to go on the road. And he has a number of really, really good relationships back where he's from, back east. And of course, Matt, certainly in this state and around the Midwest. But I've been impressed with Matt. When he left here, he played, which he should have done. He went and played professionally for 4 or 5 years, and then he went down to work for Bruce Pearl. So we learned how they do things at Auburn. And then he went to work for Darren DeVries as the director of ops. Then Darren put him on the road. So he's really learned his craft and paid his dues. When you're the director of ops, you've got to handle a lot of things. And that is a great opportunity to prepare to move over a chair or two moving forward, because you see how everything fits together. In the old days, you had 2 coaches, 2 assistant coaches, and 1 head coach, and that was it. You didn't have managers, you didn't have the personnel, but the sophistication of the scouting now, Dolph, is so much more complicated and so much more intricate. So you've got to be incredibly computer literate and able to follow everything on recruiting on the internet, and also break games down and find games and code them and then break them down to prepare a scouting report. So these 2 guys are young, but they're equally gifted in every aspect of this profession, and will have great impact on our program.
Eldridge and Gatens are getting a good look at that program's inhabitants right now as summer workouts started a couple weeks back. More on that after this pause on Fight for Iowa.
More of the Fight for Iowa podcast after this.
There's a sense of pride that comes from the life of a farmer. How many people can say they have a famous tan named after them, or be known for their wave when they drive past neighbors and strangers alike on a 2-lane road? Whether it's a farmer's tan or the farmer's wave, we are proud to be known for a lot of things. We feel that pride every night at the dinner table, knowing we feed our family and yours. Iowa Corn is proud to be on the sidelines cheering on the Iowa Hawkeyes. In Iowa, we grow corn, but the truth is, corn grows Iowa.
This is the Fight for Iowa podcast. Here's the voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin.
Under the watchful eye of strength and conditioning coach Bill Maxwell, Iowa basketball players are lifting 4 days a week, toning those bodies. Coach Fran McCaffery and staff enjoy several hours of court time with the group, including highly regarded incoming freshman guards DeSante Bowen and Josh Dix.
We can have them on the floor 4 hours a week. So typically we'll go twice a week. We'll have an hour and a half workout, and then another hour we'll do skill development. And then the guys come in on their own who want extra shots. And that's what the practice facility is for. So they also come in and do open gym, because a lot of times they just want to play, Dolph. I mean, we come in, and the great opportunity for these young guys, DeSante, and Josh Dix in particular, Amarion, all of our new guys, Dante Eldridge, to learn critical components of what we do, primarily our break, our motion offense, our defensive principles, and also maybe most importantly, our terminology, which might be different from what they have heard in the past, either from their high school coach or their AAU coach or whatever. So they learn our drills, why we're doing drills, why we play the way we play on defense, why we play the way we play on offense. And you're doing it in June and July. We don't play till November. I mentioned a minute ago, the old days. In the old days, you would bring a freshman in. They would play open gym from September 1st to October 15th. That's 6 weeks. Coaches weren't allowed to be there. Nothing's being taught. And then October 15th, we have the first day of practice. And 3 weeks later, you're playing your first game, and a freshman is trying to figure out what we're doing, and you're throwing them into a game. So now we can take our time in the summer and teach and grow, be very patient with everybody. And it's a very positive, I wouldn't say relaxed because it's intense, but there's not this incredible pressure. Like, you better learn this today because we play Michigan State tomorrow. We don't play Michigan State tomorrow. So if we make a few mistakes today, we can correct those, and we won't make those mistakes tomorrow, so that when we play Michigan State, in January, you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and you can do it well.
Coach, as we wrap it up, I often think of our old buddy, Norm Parker. Norm used to say the great thing about coaching in college is that every 4 or 5 years, players leave, new players come in, and the challenge is a new one. The excitement is as high a level as it possibly gets. And although we wish Keegan Murray well in the NBA and we'll miss him dearly, Chris Murray's come back, Tony Perkins, Aaron Eulis, the McCaffery brothers, Patrick and Connor, Rabracha and Sanford, the big guys, Agundale and Mulvey. This is a tantalizing roster again this season, isn't it? And I know you're anxious to get going as soon as full practices begin.
A little bit different than last year. Last year we had, as you and I talked many times, everybody was in a new role. And that was probably, I think very definitely the first time I'd ever coached a team where the next year everyone was in a new role. Now we have Tony Perkins back. He was a starter. Patrick McCaffery's back. He was a starter. Philip Rabracha's back. He was a starter. Now Chris Murray will be in a new role. And he is so excited about that role because he's going to play 30 plus minutes. He's going to get shots. He's going to be a guy we go to. And we went to him some last year, many times. So he's proven he's worthy of that opportunity. And he's excited about the challenge. And I really appreciate him, Dolph, because he could have stayed in the draft and signed one of those two-way deals. And he wants to be a first-round pick. So he bet on himself. You hear all these guys that say, I'm going to bet on myself. I'm going to stay in the draft. Bet on yourself, stay in the draft, and end up, a lot of times, those guys end up in the G League or end up overseas. Chris Murray's like, I want to play in the NBA. I want to be a first-round pick. And I can do it. So I'm really thankful for that attitude. So I'm excited for him. Those other 3 guys, as I mentioned, I think will all have really good years. They both had all 3 of them had really good years last year, but I think you'll see different players. Phillip's now 24 years old. Patrick is older. Tony Perkins is playing at a whole nother confidence level. I think you'll see Aaron Eulis now in his 3rd year be a completely different player. I don't think people realized, he had some lingering issues with his wrist that he had surgery on last summer, or actually last spring, 2 springs ago, that is. So as the season went on, as you saw, he wasn't able to shoot or finish like he normally would. And it really wasn't his fault. It was, the injury, the soreness and the problems in that wrist. So I think you'll see a different player there. Sante Bowen is excellent. He'll be a really good freshman for us. Play a lot. And you go through the roster, I think you'll see a different Peyton Sanford. We saw that materialize over the course of last year. It's rare that you, coming down the stretch of the Big Ten championship game, you're running plays specifically for a freshman, and he's draining threes. So that tells you, number one, the confidence I have in him, and number two, more importantly than that, the confidence that he has in himself. He expected us to run those plays, and he expected to make those shots. So that tells you what you need to know about Peyton Sanford. So I think you'll be excited about the development of Josh and Riley. Connor's playing at a really high level because this is the first time, Dolph, that he has not played baseball in 6 years. He didn't play this spring. He got healthy. As the season went on, he was healthy by the end of the year. He was not healthy at the start of the year from his hip surgeries and then trying to play baseball. He came back too soon, wasn't able to do it, didn't play this year. So he's playing basketball in the spring, playing basketball now, playing basketball in the fall, which he never did. And so you're seeing a completely different player there. We're not quite as deep as we were last year, but I think when I look at there's 11 scholarship guys, all of whom I would feel comfortable playing. We haven't seen Josh Dix yet on the floor, but he's off to the side, really picking up the pace. It's important that he had the compound fracture towards the end of his senior season. So, he's probably still maybe 2 months away from being 100%, maybe a little less than that, but he's really on target, I think, to come back. Doc Bolyer's been over watching the workouts. He's dribbling, he's shooting, he's running, not jumping much yet, not a lot of quick stops and starts. That's coming probably in the upcoming weeks.
Coach, always appreciate your time. I'd be remiss if I let you go without commenting on the schedule. It's coming into focus. It's materializing. And look at that. There could be 3 ACC. I think there are 3 ACC opponents. Duke in the Jimmy V Classic. I heard that Seton Hall would be the Gavitt Games opponent, possibly.
Yeah, I found that out from John Rothstein.
Oh, well, thank you, John.
John Rothstein texted me, "You're playing Seton Hall." Did you know what time the game is? I said, I didn't know we were playing Seton Hall.
Thanks to the media once again. You're spot on, Coach. Well, John's usually he's got good sources.
Oh my gosh, he grinds. He grinds. I laughed. I was at dinner with my daughter and my son, and I found out we're playing Seton Hall.
Did he tell you what seed we are in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, he's a visionary.
Well, you know
going.
And Iowa State. I mean, the Big Ten schedule is always murderous. I thought last year's schedule was exquisite. This year it might top it.
Well, see, last year, Dolph, early, we softened it a little bit because I wanted to see what Phillip could do. I wanted him to learn what we're doing. I wanted to allow Chris and Keegan to develop. Keegan as a star. Look, dude, like we're going to you. Let's go. Let's go get 25. You're build his confidence and develop Chris in a very unique role. He played the 5, he played the 4, he played the 3, the ultimate Swiss Army knife, and was effective in all of those positions and develop learning all those positions. I wanted Patrick to take a step, which he did. We wanted to figure out what we had. Remember, we started the season with Joe Toussaint at the point and Bohannon at the 2, made the switch because Bohannon just better with the ball in his hands. We moved Tony into the starting lineup. He blossomed. So there were so many things going on. We wanted to see what Peyton Sanford could do, and obviously he was terrific. So that all came together in a confident way. But this year, we add the gap. We didn't play the Gavitt Games last year, which is the Big East Challenge. So now we have a Big East team. We had our own tournament here, so we didn't travel. So we're going to Florida to play Clemson, TCU, teams of that caliber. We still have Iowa State. And then, we had one game left to schedule, Dolph, and we had an opportunity to schedule an easier game at home. And with the other games we had, that would have been logical in many senses of the word. But we got a phone call, would you guys be interested in playing Duke and the Jimmy V? Well, I think when you sign to play at Iowa, you expect those opportunities. And it's my responsibility to allow our guys that opportunity to play in Madison Square Garden against Duke on national television. That's what we do. That's who we are.
McCaffery adds, playing that lineup of opponents doesn't hurt the Hawkeyes in the eyes of the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee, given its strength, as long as injuries don't pile up. McCaffery feels this roster is deep enough to withstand the challenges. A final word in just a minute.
More of the Fight for Iowa podcast after this.
Here we go. Exciting adventures await. Grab your bucket list and keep the fun going all summer long. Pitch a tent, grab a sleeping bag, and sleep as a family under the stars. Fire up the grill and host a backyard barbecue. Visit a local trail for a hike or a drive to a state park for an all-day family adventure. With all there is to do this summer, we encourage you to get outside and make new memories. Whatever you do this summer, Shields is right there with you.
This is the Fight for Iowa podcast. Here's the voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin.
Iowa football's Riley Moss has been named a preseason All-American by the Walter Camp Foundation. Moss, the Big Ten's Defensive Back of the Year and Jim Thorpe semifinalist, has 10 career interceptions and 25 pass breakups. Moss leads the Hawkeye defense into play Labor Day weekend against South Dakota State. Hawkeye women's wrestling continues to build momentum and the roster in advance of its inaugural season in 2023. Head coach Clarissa Chun has signed Felicity Taylor, a 4-time national finalist and 2021 champion. Taylor spent the last 4 years at Illinois' McKendree College. Taylor is from Spillville and won 109 matches at South Winneshiek High School. Happy 4th of July holiday. That's this week's Fight for Iowa podcast. I'm Gary Dolphin. Go Hawks!
Hawkeye fans, remember to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Once you become a Fight for Iowa podcast subscriber, you'll automatically receive the latest episodes of the Fight for Iowa podcast, the Hawkeyes Voice podcast, Hawk Talk replays, exclusive game day content, and more. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Hawkeye Sports Network.